The notification lit up my phone screen like a slap in the face. The real family, posted by my daughter-in-law, Jennifer, showing her grinning next to my son David and her mother, Carol. I wasn't in the picture. The woman who raised him alone, worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything for 25 years. I'd been erased like I never existed. My hands were shaking as I typed back just 2 words. Good luck. I had no clue those 2 words would start a chain reaction that would flip all our lives upside down. An hour later, David came running through my front door, face white as a sheet, phone going crazy with calls. "Mom, what did you do? The bank just called. The lawyer called. They're saying the house, the properties, everything's being taken back." Right then, I knew my plan was working. But let me back up and tell you how I got to this point. My name is Margaret Hayes. I'm 63 years old, and I've worked my butt off my entire life to build something for my family. It started when I was 16, pregnant and alone after David's father took off. I started selling homemade pies on street corners in Portland, Oregon. Those first few dollars bought more ingredients and gave me hope. Year after year, I built a small real estate business, 3 rental properties, and a decent bank account. Everything changed the day David brought Jennifer home. It was a Sunday in March. I had beef stew cooking when I heard her heels clicking on my hardwood floors. That sound, it was like a warning bell I should have listened to. She walked in wearing this tight red dress, fake smile plastered on her face. "So you're the mother-in-law," she said, shaking my hand like it was something dirty. Not nice to meet you or anything normal, just labeled me the mother-in-law like I was a piece of furniture. Her perfectly manicured nails were nothing like my rough, scarred hands that showed every year I'd spent working for my son. David was so love-struck he couldn't see the meanness dripping from every word she said. At that first dinner, Jennifer turned my table into a war zone. "What an interesting decorating style," she said, looking at my family photos like they were trash. Her eyes stopped at my photo graduating from accounting school, the only education I could afford while raising David alone. "This stew has such a strong flavor," she said, pushing her plate away like I'd served her poison. Every comment was an insult wrapped up pretty, but I kept my mouth shut and smiled, thinking maybe she'd warm up over time. When I brought out dessert, I heard her whisper to David, "Honey, does she always cook like this? Back home, Mom has a chef who makes actual gourmet food." Her words cut deep. This woman wasn't just criticizing my cooking. She was comparing my modest home to her rich family's lifestyle. Carol, her mother, owned a chain of fancy salons and lived in a mansion in the nicest part of town. After they left, I sat alone cleaning up the plates Jennifer barely touched. The silence in my house felt heavy, like something bad was coming. David was too wrapped up in his girlfriend's fake charm to notice how she treated me. I sat in my old chair, the same one where I used to sew his school uniforms because I couldn't afford to buy them new, and for the first time in years, I cried. But I'd survived being poor, being abandoned, being alone. I wasn't going to let some spoiled princess make me feel worthless in my own house. I had no idea that first dinner was just the beginning of a 5-year nightmare that would push me to do something drastic. The next few months were like slow torture disguised as family visits. Jennifer got really good at insulting me while smiling. Every Sunday lunch, I became her target. She acted like the perfect daughter-in-law in front of David, but turned into something mean the second he looked away. "Oh, sweetie, still using that drugstore face cream? Look at those wrinkles," she'd say while putting on her expensive imported lotion in my bathroom. Her words were like knives, but said in this sweet voice she used to control my son. I'd grit my teeth and keep serving food, swallowing my anger like bad medicine. Things got worse when they announced their engagement. David showed up one afternoon, eyes all bright, holding champagne and talking about wedding plans. "Mom, I want you to be the first to know. Jennifer and I are getting married in December," he said, hugging me tight. My heart broke into a million pieces, but I smiled and congratulated him because that's what moms do. We swallow our pain to see our kids happy. Jennifer had other plans for me, though. Over the next few weeks, she started coming over alone, supposedly to plan the wedding together, but really, she was setting up new rules. "Look, I know you've been alone with David all these years, but things are going to change," she said one Tuesday, drinking tea from my good china. Her nails tapped on the table like she was threatening me. "A married woman needs her space. There can't be someone interfering in the marriage." The way she said interfering made my blood run cold. I told her I'd never gotten in the way of David's relationships, always respected his choices, but Jennifer had it all figured out. "Oh, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong on purpose. It's just men can be so attached to their mothers, right? And that causes problems in marriage." Her words were like acid eating away at me. During wedding planning, Jennifer made sure I felt like an outsider. When we went dress shopping, she stuck me in a corner while she and Carol made all the decisions. "This is a mother-daughter thing," Carol said with this condescending smile. "I'm sure you understand." I sat there quietly, watching my daughter-in-law's mother take the spot that should have been mine. The worst part came when they toured the wedding venue. David had invited me, but when we got there, Jennifer acted surprised. "Oh, honey, I didn't know you invited your mom. We said it would just be the three of us," meaning her, David, and Carol. "But she can tag along, though we've already decided everything anyway." I became a silent observer at my own son's wedding. On the wedding day, Jennifer made sure I was in as few photos as possible. Every time the photographer came near me, she'd find an excuse to send me away. "Could you check if the guests have water? Details are so important." I obeyed like hired help while Carol took my place in all the important family photos. After the honeymoon, they moved into an apartment I'd helped pay for. Michael had come to me crying, saying his tech job salary wasn't enough for the down payment. "Mom, I'll pay back every penny. I just need a loan of $10,000. How could I say no to my only son starting his new life? But visits to their apartment became weekly torture sessions. Jennifer had decorated everything in this modern style that was nothing like what I liked. "Careful sitting on that couch. It's imported and delicate. We wouldn't want it stained," she'd say every single time, treating me like a clumsy intruder in the home I'd helped buy. During dinners, Jennifer perfected making me invisible. She'd only talk to David about things I knew nothing about. Fancy restaurants, artsy movies, expensive trips. When I tried joining the conversation, she'd look at me with pity. "Oh yes, but you wouldn't know that place. It's pretty exclusive." Her words were constant small slaps that David never noticed. The final straw came when Jennifer started influencing David's money decisions. One day he showed up with a proposal that scared me to death. "Mom, Jennifer and I have been thinking, you're getting older and we need financial security. What if you put the properties in my name? That way, if anything happens to you, there won't be legal issues." It was David's voice, but Jennifer's words. That night, alone in my house, I realized I'd raised a stranger. The boy who used to cry when I cut my finger was now asking me to hand over everything I'd built through decades of hard work. But a mother's love makes you blind and stupid. Against all logic, I signed the papers he put in front of me, trusting he'd never hurt me. That day, I dug my own grave, though it took months to realize how deep the hole was. Jennifer's words kept stabbing at my heart. My daughter-in-law was planning to use a future baby as an excuse to kick me out of my own home permanently. Her cold, calculated cruelty terrified me, but it also lit a fire inside me. If she could plan to destroy me so ruthlessly, I could plan my defense just as hard. That same night, I called Robert from my cell phone, hiding in the bathroom of my own house. "Robert, we need to speed this up. This situation is getting unbearable," I whispered. My lawyer had been quietly reviewing the documents I'd signed, looking for legal problems that could undo the property transfers. "Margaret, I've got good news," Robert said, sounding hopeful. "We found several problems with the contracts. First, there was no proper waiting period, which is required for transfers this big. Second, the restrictions weren't explained to you clearly. And third, we have evidence you signed under emotional pressure from family." My heart was pounding. For the first time in months, I saw light at the end of the tunnel. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Keep documenting everything happening in your house," Robert instructed. "Every insult, every humiliation, every sign they're forcing you to live in terrible conditions in your own property. If possible, record conversations. Legally, of course." Over the next few days, I turned into a detective. I bought a small recorder I could hide in my apron and started capturing Jennifer's worst conversations. The first recording was heartbreaking. Jennifer was on the phone with Carol, plotting how they'd remodel the house once they got rid of me. "Mom, I've got it all planned out," Jennifer said coldly. "When I'm pregnant, we'll tell the old lady the baby needs quiet and her presence is too stressful. If she refuses, we'll remind her she has no legal rights to the house, and if she keeps pushing, we'll threaten a restraining order." Carol's response was even worse. "Perfect, honey. I already talked to the architect. We can knock down her bedroom wall for that walk-in closet you wanted and turn her bathroom into an office for David. This house will look amazing without all her old furniture." That recording was gold, proof that Jennifer had planned my destruction from day one. But I needed more evidence of how she manipulated David and me. For weeks, I gathered material like an investigative reporter. One afternoon, while Jennifer was in the shower, I checked her phone left on the kitchen table. What I found took my breath away. She had text messages with a friend detailing her strategy for dealing with the clingy mother-in-law. The messages were scary in how calculated they were. "Girl, I swear this old woman drives me crazy, but I'm almost done with this mission," Jennifer wrote. "David's completely on my side now. I've convinced him his mom's toxic and controlling. Next step is getting pregnant. Once I'm expecting, I'll say I need peace and she's got to go for the baby's sake. Perfect plan." My hands shook as I took photos of the texts with my phone. Each message was a confession, proof everything had been planned out. Jennifer wasn't just selfish. She was a master manipulator who'd studied every move to ruin my relationship with my son and steal what I'd built. The most devastating evidence came by accident. One Sunday afternoon, David had gone to grab takeout, and Jennifer thought I was napping. She took a call in the living room, not knowing I was listening from the kitchen with my recorder on. "Yeah, Grandma, it's almost all done," Jennifer said in her sweet voice. "David's like putty in my hands. He does whatever I say. I got the house in his name, but he doesn't know that when we divorce, I'll get half of everything. Old Lady Margaret worked her whole life to build this, and now it's going to be mine." Her next words froze my blood. "No, Grandma, I never planned to stay with David forever. He's weak, no ambition, but he was perfect for getting what I wanted. Once everything's legally mine, I'll divorce him, take my half, and marry someone better." That confession was the moment I decided it was time for total revenge. Jennifer hadn't just humiliated me and stolen my home. She was planning to destroy my son after using him. The war had officially started, and she had no clue I'd been preparing for months. That night, while everyone slept, I sat in my old chair and planned every detail of my counterattack. I had recordings, photos, bank documents, and witnesses. I had a smart lawyer who'd found the legal problems we needed. Most importantly, I had the iron will of a woman who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. My revenge would happen in 3 perfectly timed phases, starting with the social media post Jennifer was about to make. Through October and November, Jennifer ramped up her attacks. She didn't even bother hiding her contempt anymore, especially when David wasn't around. One Tuesday morning, as I washed the breakfast dishes she deliberately left dirty, she walked into the kitchen with that mean smile I knew too well. "I've got a proposal you'll love," she said, leaning against the counter like she owned it. "Mom knows this nice retirement home with gardens and activities for people your age. Don't you think you'd be happier there with folks who share your interests?" The way she said, "people your age," felt like a death sentence. I responded with the calm I'd learned over months of torture. "Jennifer, this is my home. It has my memories, my history, my whole life. I'm not going anywhere." But she was ready with a comeback. "Oh, sweetie, you don't get it. This isn't your house anymore. Legally, it belongs to David, and David's my husband. I'm the lady of the house now." Her words slapped me hard, but they also fueled my determination to speed up my plan. That afternoon, I met Robert at his office to review everything we'd collected. My lawyer had been working hard for months and finally had game-changing news. "Margaret, we found the definitive evidence," he said with a big smile. "The documents you signed have problems so serious any judge would throw them out. Plus, your recordings clearly prove you were a victim of manipulation and psychological abuse." My heart raced as I looked through the file he'd prepared. "But that's not all," Robert continued. "We also discovered Jennifer's been using the properties as collateral for personal loans without your knowledge. She's racked up debts of over $50,000 tied to properties that legally still belong to you." My hands trembled as I understood the scale of the scam. The plan was simple but devastating. We'd file a lawsuit for contract cancellation, breach of trust, psychological manipulation, and fraudulent use of assets. Timing was critical, though. "We need a public trigger," Robert explained, "something that clearly shows Jennifer's cruelty toward you, evidence so obvious no one could defend her." That trigger came on Friday, December 13th, a day I'll never forget. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard Jennifer laughing in the living room. She was with Carol and 2 friends, all giggling over her phone. "What a beautiful photo," one friend said. "You guys look like the perfect family." Curiosity pulled me closer, and what I saw broke my heart into 1,000 pieces, but also sparked the fury I'd been holding back for months. Jennifer had posted a photo of herself, David, and Carol, all smiling in my living room with a caption that changed everything: "The real family." The message was clear and cruel. I, who'd raised David alone for 25 years, who'd sacrificed my youth and dreams to give him a decent life, had been officially erased from the family Jennifer valued. My neighbors called immediately. "Margaret, did you see what your daughter-in-law posted?" asked Betty, my longtime neighbor. "How could she be so cruel?" Others saw the post too, and supportive comments from me poured in, but I knew this was the moment I'd been waiting for. With shaking hands, I typed my response on my phone. Just 2 words that would change everything forever. "Good luck!" The second I hit send, I knew I'd set off a bomb that would destroy the perfect life Jennifer thought she'd built on my ruins. Right after, I called Robert. "It's time. It just happened. Exactly what we needed." My lawyer had been waiting for this call for weeks. "Perfect, Margaret. Within an hour, all the legal documents will be in motion. The property transfers will be canceled, the bank accounts frozen, and we'll start immediate recovery of all your assets." As Robert set the legal machine in motion, I braced myself for what was coming. I knew within hours David would get calls that would turn his life upside down. During that hour of waiting, Jennifer kept laughing with her friends, clueless about her world collapsing. "Look how I put all the nosy people in their place," she said, reading comments. "It's about time everyone knew who's in charge of this family." Her words stabbed my heart, but they also fed my need for justice. At 2 o'clock sharp, David's phone started ringing. It was the bank saying the accounts tied to the properties had been frozen by court order. 10 minutes later, another call from the lawyer who'd handled the original transfer, explaining serious legal problems with the signed documents. From the kitchen, I could hear David's voice cracking with each call. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen? What does void contracts mean? What problems?" Jennifer stopped laughing, her face now showing growing terror. The third call sealed it. It was Robert officially telling David that a lawsuit had been filed to cancel the property transfers completely, and until the case was resolved, all assets automatically went back to their original owner. "Mr. Hayes, your mother has the legal right to immediately reclaim everything that belongs to her," Robert said firmly. When David hung up, his face was white as paper, hands shaking as he looked to Jennifer for answers she couldn't give. "What's going on?" he shouted at his wife. "Why is the lawyer saying Mom can take everything back? What did we do wrong?" Jennifer was in shock, unable to process that her perfect plan had fallen apart in minutes. That's when David stormed into the house yelling my name. "Mom, what did you do? The lawyer just called about the house, the properties, everything." His voice was panic, confusion, and fear all mixed together. At that moment, I knew my revenge had officially begun, and nothing in that house, now mine again, would ever be the same. "Mom, please tell me what's happening," David begged, tears in his eyes, kneeling by my chair like he did as a kid when he'd broken something valuable. But this time, what was broken was way more than a vase or plate. It was trust, respect, the family I'd built with so much love and let them destroy. I looked at him with the calm that only years of suffering and knowing you're doing the right thing can bring. "Son, sit down. It's time you know the whole truth," I said, pointing to the couch where we used to watch movies when he was little. Jennifer tried to approach, but I stopped her with a look. "You sit too, Jennifer. This especially concerns you." I pulled out a thick folder from my bag, one I'd been building for months. It had photos, recorded conversations transcribed, bank documents, and a detailed timeline of every humiliation I'd endured over 2 years. "David, I want you to see this," I said, handing him the first photo. It was a screenshot of a text where Jennifer told a friend she'd use a pregnancy as an excuse to kick me out. David's face crumpled as he read it. His eyes moved across the text, and with each line, he looked more horrified. "Jennifer, what is this?" he asked his wife, voice trembling. But she sat silent, face paler than the walls. "That's nothing compared to this," I said, handing him the transcript of the recording where Jennifer confessed she planned to divorce him once she got half of everything. "Read it out loud, David. I want you to hear the words of the woman you say you love with your own voice." My son started reading, voice breaking. "David's like putty in my hands. He does whatever I say. I never plan to stay with him forever. Once everything's legally locked in, I'll divorce him, take my half, and marry someone better." Each word was a hammer blow, shattering the image he had of his wife. Jennifer tried defending herself with the same manipulation she'd used for years. "Honey, that's not true. I never said those things. Your mom's making it all up to tear us apart. Can't you see she's jealous of our love?" But her words sounded hollow and desperate, like a cornered animal's last gasps. I pulled out my phone and played the original recording. Jennifer's voice filled the room crystal clear. "David's like putty in my hands. He does whatever I say." The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at his wife like she was a stranger, like he'd just realized he'd been living with someone he didn't know at all. "There's more," I continued. I showed him the bank documents revealing how Jennifer had used my properties as collateral for personal loans. "Your wife's been racking up debts to fund her lifestyle. She owes $50,000, planning to pay it off by selling my house." The numbers were cold, hard facts, undeniable. David stood and walked to the window, turning his back on Jennifer. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "How could I be so blind?" he said against the glass. "How could I let her treat you like this, Mom? How could I be so stupid?" His pain was real, but it came too late. I wasn't done. The final blow would be the most devastating. I pulled out the latest recording where Jennifer was on the phone with Carol, planning to turn my bedroom into a walk-in closet once they kicked me out. "Listen to this, son. Hear how they plan to erase every trace of me from this house." When the recording ended, Jennifer finally spoke, but not with her usual manipulative tone. Now she screamed like a wounded animal. "Fine, yes, it's all true. But you brought this on yourself, you meddling old woman, always in the way, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. David needed a wife, not a controlling second mother." Her words confirmed everything I already knew, but hearing them out loud without masks was freeing. "Thank you for your honesty, Jennifer," I replied with calm that made her even angrier. "Now David can see who you really are." She exploded. "I don't care what you think. I deserve better than this crappy house and this pathetic family. David's a spineless loser, and you're a bitter old hag who doesn't know when to quit." Her mask had fallen completely, showing the snake she'd always been. David turned slowly toward his wife, and for the first time in years, I saw determination in his eyes, the kind he'd inherited from me. "Jennifer, I want you out of this house right now. I never want to see you again." His voice was firm, no weakness. "You're kicking me out?" Jennifer screamed, not believing it. "This is my house. I'm your wife. You can't do this." But David had made his final decision. "This was never your house. This is my mother's house. The woman who sacrificed everything for me while you only planned to destroy me. Get out now before I call the police." Jennifer looked around like a caged animal, searching for one last card to play. She tried approaching David with fake tears. "Honey, we can fix this. I love you for real. Everything I said was out of spite. We can start over without your mom in the way." But my son was no longer the man who could be manipulated. "No, Jennifer, it's over. You've lied, stolen, humiliated my mother, and planned to betray me from the start. There's nothing to fix." Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Robert, my lawyer, with a police officer. "Mrs. Hayes, we're here to formalize the recovery of your properties and officially notify the cancellation of the contracts," Robert announced professionally. The officer held the legal documents that turned Jennifer's world into a nightmare. "Miss Caldwell," the officer said, "you have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings and leave the property. Any attempt to stay beyond that will be trespassing." The words hit Jennifer like a death sentence. She glared at everyone with pure hatred. "This isn't over," she threatened as she stormed upstairs to pack. "You don't know who you're messing with. My family has connections, lawyers, influence. I'll take back everything that's mine." Her words sounded like desperate roars from a defeated animal. From upstairs came sounds of drawers being yanked open, clothes thrown into suitcases, objects crashing against walls. Jennifer was destroying what she couldn't take in a final act of childish revenge. But I didn't care anymore. Objects can be replaced. Dignity and respect, once lost, are way harder to get back. When Jennifer came downstairs dragging her suitcases, the elegant, manipulative woman who'd entered my home 5 years ago was gone. Her hair was messy, makeup smeared from angry tears, dress wrinkled from rushing. She looked like an actress stumbling off stage after the worst performance of her life. "Michael, please think this through," she tried one last time, using that syrupy voice she'd perfected. "This is all your mother's fault. She's tearing us apart because she can't stand you being happy with another woman. Don't you see she's playing with your mind?" Her desperate words bounced off David's new strength like raindrops on a closed window. "Jennifer, it doesn't work anymore," David said. "You can't brainwash me with your lies. I've seen the proof, heard the recordings, and I know exactly who you are and what you plan to do to me." The officer checked his watch. "Ma'am, you have 15 minutes left to leave the property." She looked around the living room she'd redecorated, like she was memorizing every detail. "Fine," she said at last, voice cracking but still full of venom. "I'm leaving, but this isn't over. I'll sue you for defamation, psychological abuse, conspiracy." She pointed at Robert with contempt. "Miss Caldwell," Robert replied calmly, "I suggest you consult your lawyers before making legal threats. We have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges for fraud, financial manipulation, and psychological abuse. Any attempt at legal revenge will only make your situation worse." The smirk vanished from Jennifer's face as she realized she had no legal ground to stand on. She dragged her suitcases to the door but paused at the threshold for one last shot. "Margaret, you're a bitter, manipulative old woman. You've torn us apart, but David will realize his mistake. When he's alone and depressed, he'll remember how happy he was with me, and it'll be too late." Her words tried to wound, but they only sounded pathetic. "Jennifer," I replied, standing from my chair with all the dignity I'd reclaimed, "I didn't tear anyone apart. You exposed yourself with your own words and actions. David isn't losing a wife. He's freeing himself from a con artist who saw him as a means to money." Jennifer glared at me with pure hatred, like she could burn me with her eyes. "You know nothing about real love. You're a lonely, bitter woman who never got over your husband leaving you. That's why you can't stand your son finding happiness with someone else." Her dig about my husband was the lowest blow she could land, but it had no power anymore. My husband didn't leave me, Jennifer. He died in a car accident when David was 8. But even if he had, I'd rather be a lone, dignified woman than a married con artist planning to betray her husband, I said calmly. The shock on her face showed she'd never bothered to learn our family's real story. Just then, Carol pulled up in her luxury SUV, honking from the street. Jennifer's mother had come to rescue her daughter from the mess they'd created together. When Carol stormed in and saw the scene, her face fell. "What's going on? Why does Jennifer have suitcases? Who are these people?" "Mom," the old lady said, "a legal trap," Jennifer explained through theatrical sobs. "She's taken back all the properties and they're kicking me out." Carol turned to me with the same arrogance her daughter had. "Mrs. Hayes, this is outrageous. My daughter is a married woman with legal rights to this property. You can't just throw her out." Robert stepped in. "Miss Hensley, your daughter never had legal rights to these properties. The transfer contracts have been voided due to serious problems. Furthermore, we've discovered she used the properties as collateral for unauthorized personal loans, which is a federal crime." His words hit Carol like an avalanche. Her arrogance melted into terror. "Federal crime? What are you talking about? My daughter would never do anything illegal." But her voice had no conviction. "Miss Hensley," Robert continued, "we have evidence that you actively participated in the psychological manipulation of my client. The recordings include conversations where you suggest specific ways to pressure Mrs. Hayes into leaving her home." Carol's face turned white as paper. The officer checked his watch again. "Ladies, your time is up. You must leave the property immediately, or I'll have to arrest you for trespassing." Susan grabbed her daughter's arm and dragged her toward the door. "This isn't over," Carol shouted from the doorway. "We know important people. We have expensive lawyers. We'll take back everything that's ours." But her threats rang hollow. "Miss Hensley," I replied with calm that made them angrier, "nothing here ever belonged to you. Everything you got was through lies and manipulation. Now you're getting what you deserve." From the window, we watched them climb into Carol's SUV. Jennifer sobbed hysterically while her mother tried consoling her, probably already plotting their next move. But I knew they had no legal ground to fight on. Robert had built a case that would hold up against any counterattack. When the SUV disappeared, a deep silence filled my house. It was different from the oppressive silence of months of humiliation. This was silence of freedom, of justice served, of dignity reclaimed. For the first time in years, my house felt like a home again. David approached me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, I don't know how to apologize for everything I put you through. I was blind, an idiot, a terrible son. I let that woman humiliate you in your own home, treat you like a stranger, and plan to steal everything you built." His pain was genuine, the first step toward healing. "Son," I said, taking his hands, "a mother's love doesn't disappear with mistakes. You were manipulated by an expert. What matters is you see the truth now, and you're willing to make things right." The officer and Robert said goodbye after making sure all the legal documents were in order. "Mrs. Hayes," Robert said before leaving, "legally, you've reclaimed everything. The properties, the bank accounts, all are back in your name. Jennifer can't claim anything because the marriage happened after the fraudulent transfers. It was final confirmation of my total victory." When David and I were finally alone, we sat on the couch where we'd shared so many happy moments when he was a child. The house felt strangely empty without Jennifer's toxic presence. But it also felt clean, like a stubborn stain had finally been scrubbed away. The weeks after Jennifer's eviction felt like living in a brand new world. My house, once a silent battlefield, transformed into a peaceful place where I could finally breathe without fear. But the outside calm didn't match the emotional storm inside me. David had temporarily moved back home while starting divorce proceedings. Seeing him walk the halls with guilt and regret broke my heart. My son, once my pride and joy, was now a shadow of himself, crushed by the betrayal. "Mom, how can you forgive me so easily?" he asked one afternoon over coffee in the kitchen. His eyes were sunken with dark circles from sleepless nights. "I let that woman humiliate you for years. I failed you in the worst way." I poured more coffee into his favorite mug, the one with faded superhero designs he'd used since childhood. "Son, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means not letting resentment eat my heart. You were a victim of an expert manipulator just like I was. The difference is she blinded you with fake love while she attacked me directly." But forgiving wasn't the same as trusting again. In those first weeks, whenever David tried to hug me or rebuild our old bond, part of me tensed up. Memories of how he avoided my eyes when Jennifer humiliated me stayed like ghosts between us. One morning, sorting through mail, I found a certified letter that chilled my blood. It was from a fancy law firm representing Jennifer, suing for unequal distribution of assets and psychological damages. My ex-daughter-in-law had followed through on her threat to fight back legally, and her expensive lawyers had found a strategy to try getting part of the estate. I called Robert immediately. He reviewed the documents carefully. "Mrs. Hayes, this was expected," he said calmly, though I heard professional concern. "Jennifer's desperate and playing her last card, claiming that as David's wife, she's entitled to half the assets in his name during the marriage." "Can she win?" I asked directly. Robert paused for agonizing seconds. "Legally, her case is weak because the assets were obtained fraudulently, but some judges might consider David acted in good faith when he received the properties as a gift from you. If that happens, she could get a financial settlement." The thought of that woman getting 1 cent of my estate made me angrier than all her humiliations combined. Over the next few days, I obsessively gathered more evidence. Every recorded conversation, every text message, every document proving her planned manipulation. Meanwhile, Jennifer launched a predictable smear campaign on social media. She posted photos from when she seemed happy with David, with dramatic captions about toxic mothers-in-law who destroy marriages and controlling moms who can't let go. Her shallow friends responded with heart emojis and comments like, "Such an injustice. You deserve better." But truth has a way of coming out. Neighbors who'd witnessed my humiliation started commenting on Jennifer's posts, sharing the real story. Betty, my longtime neighbor, wrote a harsh comment. "I saw how this woman treated Margaret like a maid in her own home. What nerve to play victim now." Support for me snowballed. People who knew my story of hard work and sacrifice defended me publicly. Margaret busted her back to give her son everything, and this opportunist tried to take it all, wrote the owner of the corner store where I'd shopped for decades. Justice was served, even if it came late. Public opinion turned so strongly against Jennifer that she had to disable comments on her posts, but the damage to her reputation was done. Even her friends began questioning her privately. Carol tried a different approach. One Saturday afternoon, she showed up at my door alone, her usual arrogance replaced with something softer, almost pleading. "Margaret, we need to talk," she said. "This has gotten out of hand. We can settle things like adults." I let her in but kept my guard up. Carol sat on the edge of the couch like she was afraid to get comfortable. "Look, I know my daughter made mistakes. Maybe she was too harsh with you, but understand she comes from a different world. She's not used to, well, this simpler way of life." Her words mixed fake apology with veiled classism. "Carol," I replied firmly, "your daughter didn't make mistakes. She systematically planned to steal my estate and destroy my relationship with my son. That's not a cultural difference. It's a crime." Her expression showed she knew exactly what I meant. "What do you want Jennifer to do to fix this?" Carol asked, switching tactics. "She's willing to apologize publicly, drop the lawsuit, even pay you compensation." "I don't want her money, Carol," I said without hesitation. "I want her and you out of our lives for good. Your daughter had years to treat me with respect, but chose cruelty and manipulation. Now she faces the consequences." My firmness left her speechless. Carol tried one last emotional plea. "Think about David. He genuinely loved my daughter. Don't you think he deserves a second chance at happiness?" "David will be happy when he learns to value people for who they are, not what they pretend to be," I replied. When Carol left, I knew I'd won the psychological war. Jennifer's family had run out of manipulation tactics and now faced legal consequences. But the victory felt bittersweet because David had to live with being so thoroughly deceived. That night, David and I had dinner together for the first time in years, without Jennifer's toxic presence. We talked naturally, remembering his childhood, discussing future plans, laughing at inside jokes only we understood. At times it felt like the past 5 years had been a nightmare we'd finally woken from. "Mom," David said while we washed dishes, "I want you to know I'll spend the rest of my life making up for what I put you through, not just with words but with actions. I want to be the son you deserved." "Son," I replied, drying my hands on the apron I'd worn cooking his favorite meal, "you don't need to make up for it forever. Just learn from this and never let anyone manipulate you into hurting people who truly love you." It was a hard but necessary lesson. That night, getting ready for bed in my room in my house that I'd finally reclaimed, I felt deep peace I hadn't known in years. I'd won more than a legal battle. I'd reclaimed my dignity, my home, and the chance to rebuild my relationship with my son. 6 months after Jennifer's eviction, my life found a new balance I never thought possible. The legal battle ended in total victory. Jennifer not only lost her lawsuit but had to pay legal fees and a fine for attempted estate fraud. Robert had built such a solid case that her expensive lawyers couldn't save her. News of her legal defeat spread through the neighborhood fast. People who once admired her supposed elegance now talked about her as a cautionary tale. "Truth always comes out," Betty said at the market. "That woman thought she was so clever, but she didn't know Margaret." David slowly became the man I remembered before Jennifer. The divorce finalized without complications since she had no legal grounds to claim anything. He'd lost weight during those tough months but gained something way more valuable, the ability to recognize manipulation. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he said one afternoon while we worked in the garden I'd reclaimed. "Not just how she manipulated me, but why I was so vulnerable to it." His hands worked the soil with care he'd learned as a child when I taught him to plant my first roses. "Tell me what you figured out," I said, planting new flowers where Jennifer had tried putting exotic plants that didn't fit our climate. It was symbolic, restoring the garden's natural essence, just like we were restoring our relationship's warmth. "I think part of the problem was I never truly valued what I had," David continued. "I grew up seeing your sacrifices as normal, something moms just do. I never stopped to think about everything you gave up for me. The late nights working extra to pay for my college, the times you went without to give me the best." His words hit my heart, but filled me with deep satisfaction. It was the first time he truly understood what we'd built together. "Son, I did all that because I love you, not so you'd feel indebted," I said. "But I'm glad you now see the value of sacrifices we make for those we love." David's transformation wasn't just emotional, it was practical. He started contributing to the house's upkeep, not as a temporary guest, but as an adult son who finally understood family responsibilities. He cooked on Sundays, fixed the leaky roof, installed new locks to secure our home. "Mom, I want to talk about my future," he said one night after dinner. "I've decided I'm not moving out on my own again. I want to stay here with you, help with everything, make sure you're never vulnerable again." His offer touched me but also worried me. "David, I appreciate that, but you're a young man," I replied. "You deserve to find true love, start your own family, live your own life. I don't want my situation to hold you back." He took my hands with gentle strength. "Mom, staying here isn't a limitation. It's a conscious choice. For years I thought independence meant moving away from you. But now I understand true independence is choosing where and who you want to be with. I want to be here rebuilding what we almost lost." In those months, news trickled in about Jennifer and her family. Through mutual friends, I learned Carol had to sell one of her fancy salons to cover the debts Jennifer racked up using my properties as collateral. Their family business took a financial hit that would take years to recover from. Jennifer tried starting over in another city, but her reputation followed her. In the age of social media, stories of manipulation and fraud travel fast. Several potential partners backed off after digging into her past. "Do you feel any satisfaction knowing she's paying the consequences?" David asked when I shared the news. "I don't feel satisfaction, son. I feel justice," I replied after thinking. Satisfaction would come if I'd planned her downfall for revenge, but what happened was her own actions leading to natural consequences. I didn't destroy Jennifer. She destroyed herself. A year after the drama, I received an unexpected letter from Jennifer, handwritten on fancy paper she probably couldn't afford anymore. The letter was long, filled with apologies that sounded genuine, but also justifications showing she still didn't fully grasp what she'd done. "Dear Margaret," it began, "I know you probably want nothing to do with me, but I feel I need to formally apologize for all the harm I caused you and your family. I've had time to reflect and see my behavior was inexcusable." Over 3 pages, it alternated between guilt and subtle attempts to blame her privileged upbringing and inexperience with working-class families. She clearly didn't understand that respect and dignity aren't class concepts. They're basic human values. "I don't expect your forgiveness," it ended, "but I want you to know I've learned from this and will never treat anyone the way I treated you. I hope you find peace knowing that, though it came at a high cost, your courage taught me a lesson I needed." David read the letter when I showed it to him. "Parts sound genuine, but she's still trying to minimize what she did," he observed with new maturity. "It's like she wants credit for finally admitting the obvious." I chose not to respond, not out of cruelty, but because Jennifer needed to live with her actions' consequences without seeking forgiveness from those she'd hurt. Some life lessons are only learned alone. Today, as I write this, I can say my life has found happiness I never thought possible after so much pain. My house is a home again, filled with mutual love and respect. My garden blooms with the plants I chose, my kitchen smells of meals I love to cook, and my living room is decorated with memories that truly matter. David has started dating a new woman, Sarah Chen, an elementary school teacher who treats me with the respect a mother-in-law deserves. The difference is striking. While Jennifer entered my home like an invader, Sarah arrives with humility and genuine interest in our family's story. "Mrs. Margaret, could you teach me how to make that stew David loves?" she asked last Sunday. "I want to learn the recipes that matter to him, the ones tied to his childhood memories." Her words were music to my ears, the sound of a woman who understands that loving a man means respecting those who shaped him. In the end, Jennifer did me an unexpected favor. Her cruelty forced me to find strength I didn't know I had. It taught me to value my own dignity and showed me it's never too late to stand up to people who abuse you. Most importantly, it gave me back my son in a deeper, more genuine way than we'd ever had. They thought they could destroy me, but they only helped me build walls no one will ever break through again. Behind those walls, protected by the wisdom of years and battles won, I now live a life filled with peace that comes from valuing yourself as much as you value others.